As you can imagine, as soon as a trade is done, the fan base on both sides are left to, okay, so did we win? Did we lose? Vancouver fans, they thought this was great. They really liked it. Flames fans, as you probably heard when you came in, maybe feels a little bit light. But and you kind of tweeted about it, that maybe the key is not so much the picks, it's about Vancouver taking all of the salary and Calgary shedding all $3.75 million.
Yeah, and look, there were teams around the NHL that thought that the return was a little bit light, but you do have to look at it from Conroy's perspective and Calgary's standpoint here. Lots of interest in Zadorov, provided Calgary was willing to retain money. And Calgary was willing to retain money. They didn't want to, but how do you retain money? Well, you're coerced into retaining money by getting a sweetener as part of the deal. And the teams that needed the Calgary Flames, like the Toronto Maple Leafs, needed the Flames to eat some of the salary, weren't willing to pay the price that Conroy had established, whatever that was, to retain money. Okay, that's fine. Craig Conroy obviously knew, even though he didn't love the idea of trading him to another Canadian market, let alone within the division of the Vancouver Canucks, he knew that he had that deal there. So as soon as the Vancouver Canucks moved Beauvillier to the Chicago Blackhawks, they've created cap flexibility, and they did it because of the move they just made. They knew that they wanted to and needed to bolster their blue line. So what we've learned over the years with a hard salary cap is that it is currency when you've got that level of flexibility. I heard you guys talk about, what Conroy and company might do with that flexibility. Do they create more with some of the other pending unrestricted free agents? Time will tell. But they could also be in a brokering position, right? Where they acquire more assets as being now a third team lender as part of a trade process. So this gives Conroy a lot more maneuverability than what he had. And let's not also overlook, here's a player, even though he was a good teammate, a good third pairing defenseman, didn't really want to be in Calgary anymore, right? I mean, he made that abundantly clear through his agent, Dan Milstein. So I think that Conroy did good work here and what turned out to be not such a great situation overall.
Why now? I mean, I understand there's the player wants out, but you also don't want to just cave anytime a player makes a request. And you also heard Craig come out and say, we're doing it when it's good for the Flames, not when it's good for Nikita.
Right. Well, you know what? I think it's just a recognition of the value of Zadorov on the trade landscape. Now, the four of us may have a different feel on this, but he gets a third and a fifth round pick. What if he waits till the trade deadline and maybe he squeezes that third down to a second? Was it worth the wait? Maybe you've missed out. You think so?
Absolutely. I think a third, you got such a better chance of getting a player than a second than a third.
Well,
and again, maybe, it's a third in 3 years. They have a third this year. I'd love to hear why it's not this year's third.
Okay, but that's interesting. I mean, the actual years was it 24 and 26. That's a bit of a head scratcher. I'm sure that Vancouver would explain it maybe better than the Calgary Flames can. It's just, so if you're willing to wait, that trade is made late November, right? If you're willing to wait until March 8th, imagine all the possibilities that perhaps have disappeared because you just were waiting. You weren't getting what you thought you needed to get to move up from a third to a second. So for me, I think we're splitting hairs a little bit there. I'm more curious, and I mentioned a minute or so ago, all the teams that needed Calgary to retain and the fact that Calgary didn't want to, but there was a willingness to retain. Okay, well, what was Conroy expecting to retain salary? Like, are you looking for another draft pick, like a second, a third? Like, what sort of scenario would Calgary have had to command in order to retain money? Because they're saying they didn't want to, but they were willing to. They just couldn't get the appropriate sweetener.
Yeah. $3.75 million. It's not insignificant. And I would think that now you can retain a maximum of 3 players, correct? In terms of retained salary.
Yeah.
I would think that if you're going to retain salary on a potential Hanifin or Lindholm deal, that would be the more significant. Yeah, you could have done it here, but you don't want to potentially hamstring yourself, I guess, down the road. And what if Zadorov's play goes down? Because we all kind of agreed he's had a pretty good start to the season. There's still the hiccups in his game, and he's going to have forever, but he's put together a good sizzle reel for other teams to take a look at so far this season. So he moves on
to
five,
though, right? That's what he
yeah.
is. He's a 5-6, depending on the team that he's going to. In Vancouver, he'll comfortably play there.
And Rhett, you've talked about this too. Even if he's being a good teammate right now and they're winning and he's excited, he's happy to see the goals go in and all of that. Once you kind of dip your toe into that trade me waters, is it not hard to kind of just look down the bench and feel like,
I think
I'd love us to all be all in here, but I know that you're not.
I think it is. And I think the Flames are playing well. And I think that having a guy that's said he doesn't want to be there and make it a little awkward. So I'm not alluding to him being a bad teammate.
No,
I just think it's never a good situation.
He's played worse since the request too, to your point. That hasn't helped airing this publicly. I thought he's dipped since then.
Yeah. It's I'm not going to say that Vancouver settled on Zadorov. There wouldn't be many coaches in the NHL that don't like big, hulking, physical defensemen, right? But from a coaching perspective, I think that Vancouver would have preferred Tanev because of the right shot and the need that they have in Vancouver. But, again, they want to improve their blue line, and I think they've done that. But as soon as a trade like this goes down, we're not that far removed from U.S. Thanksgiving, then social media blows up. Oh, geez, there's the first domino. This is going to be fun. Can't wait for the next one. Is this a fire sale now in Calgary? And no, it isn't. If somebody steps up on Tanev or they step up on one of the other pieces and they make Conroy think, of course he has to consider it. There's no doubt about that. I'm more interested in some of the other managers. Danny Briere for the Philadelphia Flyers. He's got pieces there that he's trying to peddle out, right? He's got Sealer, he's got Sean Walker. Ristolainen, that's a tough contract through 26-27 at 5.1, but he's playing better of late. The Columbus guys with Peak and Boquist. So now that one guy is gone and there's sort of been a trade market established here, is that going to put any sort of outside pressure on some of the sellers? Because the buyers are still there. Brad Treliving and the Toronto Maple Leafs need to do something with their defense. And so we'll see. I don't think, again, that it's going to spark this flurry of trades, but I think that we will see more activity in the days and weeks ahead.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to check out more of our content right here on the Flames Nation YouTube page. We had a bunch of great long form interviews. You can check out some videos we've done as well outside of the studio. And of course, if you want more writing or merchandise stuff, flamesnation.ca or nationgear.ca. Appreciate you watching.